Hey guys, welcome back to anybody joining me today who's already been on my channel before. Glad to have you back, and hello to anybody who is new joining me today that has never met me before. Just a little bit of background. My name's Holly. I'm Holly Inked on all of my social media platforms, so go and check me out, show me some love and support. Today's video is actually going to be really personal to me. Probably the most personal video that I've actually ever done on YouTube or really on any of my social media platforms. Today I'm going to be talking about my diagnosed illness, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME. Both exactly the same thing, just two different terms for it. The reason that I'm making this video today is to, one, show some awareness for the illness, because I think a lot of people are still kind of on the fence as to whether or not they even believe that it's a real thing. I mean, I've even, through the process of this, spoken to doctors who don't even believe in the illness itself. So one is just to spread some awareness to people. Two is to give some people some understanding on what it actually means and what it actually is, because it's one of those things when you say chronic fatigue syndrome, a lot of people just go, oh yeah, I understand, I'm really tired too. And that's no disrespect to those people that say that, but you know, it's not really about being tired. If that was it, then I don't really think it would be, you know, a term, and I don't think people would suffer to the extent that they do. Another reason that I wanted to make this video as well is just for anybody who thinks that maybe they've got chronic fatigue, or maybe they're a little bit worried that they think that their symptoms fit with this, and you know, they're wondering whether they should go to the doctors for it or anything like that. It might just give you a bit more of an idea on, you know, some of the actual main symptoms that you are going to be having if you do have chronic fatigue. I just want to start by doing a quick disclaimer kind of thing. In no way, shape or form am I a health professional at all. I'm just somebody who suffers with the illness themselves. The other thing I wanted to say as well is, if you do go to the doctors and feel like maybe this is something that you have, don't expect them to, you know, like look into this first. I mean, I now am expected to have had this for over a year, and I've only had my official diagnosis for 2 months, because throughout all of that time I was being tested for countless different things. I had more blood tests this year than what in the past year than what I've had in my entire life, like times 10. And it is a bit of a slow process. I mean, because there's no real one test to see if you've got it, they have to do it by power of elimination. So, you know, if you are in the process of going through this or anything like that, don't give up, because I was at the point where I kind of wanted to give up and get a diagnosis, but you will get one, and whether it's this or it's something else, don't give up. They will figure it out, and there is help out there for you. No matter what you've got, there is somebody else that's suffering with the same thing with you, and you're not on your own, no matter what it is. So you've got 4 parts of your energy, which is your cognitive, your physical, emotional, and your social. Now, all 4 of those aspects are hugely affected when you have chronic fatigue. So, you know, if you are feeling like you might struggle more emotionally, so you're feeling a lot more down and almost depressed, that's completely normal with this as well. Depression and chronic fatigue are linked like this. Or if you find that it's the social aspect that you really struggle with, that's completely normal too. Or even if it's your concentration and you just can't really remember anything, again, completely normal. Or even if it's your physical side of it and it is that you're physically exhausted, again, it is completely normal. All 4 of these aspects, which is pretty much all of your life, will be affected by this if you have it. Or if somebody that you know has it, they are being affected in every single area of their life. I think one of the first things to understand is that chronic fatigue for every single person is completely different, which is something that I didn't know until I got in touch with they got in touch with me with the chronic fatigue clinic. I'm with the southern one, I'm from the UK, so I think there's only one in the south, and I'm currently working on a 6-month program with them. And the first thing she said to me was that everybody's symptoms are so varied. So, you know, one person, unfortunately, like me, could tick every single box for how they're feeling, and the next person might only have 4 or 5. which is again completely normal. So I'm just going to start by going through with you some of the main, more obvious kind of symptoms that you may sort of have. So the most obvious one is obviously fatigue. Now, there's a huge difference between being tired and having fatigue. When you're really tired and exhausted, like I used to get, like every single human does, before I had this, I'd find, you'd go to sleep, you get a really good night's rest, and you'd wake up feeling a lot better in the morning. With chronic fatigue, you don't have that luxury. You can sleep for 5 hours or you could sleep for 15 hours, and it makes absolutely no difference to your exhaustion level. The way that the nurse that I spoke to, I speak to regularly, described it to me is, imagine 2 little batteries, and they are the rechargeable ones, but they're broken. So no matter how much charge you put into them, they just never fill up, and they're constantly just going down and down. So they're kind of just doing this. That's somebody's energy level with chronic fatigue compared to a car battery, for example, which is constantly being charged and never really sort of goes flat. So that's kind of like the comparative sort of analogy for people with chronic fatigue and their exhaustion, and those that are, just normal, whatever that means, people that don't have chronic fatigue. So there is a huge difference in the level of exhaustion. So running on from exhaustion, I guess the next thing that would then make sense is when your energy levels have completely exhausted. When you've got nothing left in you, you have no more energy left, like you've used all your reserves. That's when you start running on adrenaline. And this is something I found particularly interesting because this is something that I couldn't find online. So if you, once you get to that point, because everybody with chronic fatigue will get to that point some point in their day, mine's usually about between 1 and 2 o'clock, I find that I start getting really bad heart palpitations. So whenever I'm getting up, standing, even if that's just literally to get up to go to the bathroom or get up and make myself a drink, my heart will start going. And I find it hard to sort of focus on anything, and my breathing becomes sort of slightly more erratic, and I find that I get sort of a little bit more dizzy, and I start feeling really, really nauseous, which is one of the worst symptoms for me. And that then kind of progresses throughout the day and just steadily gets worse until I'm going to bed. And that is because your body is running on adrenaline from this point. So you'll find that heart palpitations and nausea are really, really common symptoms. Being really exhausted can make you feel sick, but you wouldn't usually get the heart palpitation part with it. So again, that's kind of like a difference between somebody who's just tired and somebody who's got chronic fatigue. So like most people have had the flu in their lives, and you have those horrible aches and pains in all of your joints and your muscles. That is another huge symptom with chronic fatigue. Again, not everybody will have that, but you'll find that all of your body aches and hurts a lot more. So I constantly have pains in my joints. So mine's in my elbows and the backs of my knees. It was also quite a lot in my lower back, but I find that especially if I'm sort of doing any physical activity for, more than like an hour, whether that's walking or I stand up in my job all day, so standing up doing that after an hour, I'm in quite a lot of pain, and it does really remind me of sort of like the flu. On really bad days, I am literally in bed. I can't really move properly. My partner will help me get up and go to the toilet. On days that are slightly better than that, she might even help me have a shower or anything, because I just don't have it in me. Again, obviously, to be to that extremity or to have those aches and pains all the time, unless you've actually got a separate illness, aren't your sort of normal, average kind of problems that people will find day to day. So that is another difference between, again, somebody who's more normal and somebody that is actually suffering with chronic fatigue. So that kind of sums up the more sort of physical symptoms. I'm going to go into the next part, which will go into the more cognitive symptoms now. So in terms of your cognitive symptoms, you'll find that, again, you might not have all of these, but you would at least have to have one from each category to sort of qualify for being put forward to a fatigue specialist to see for their pre-assessment to see if they agree with your diagnosis. So in terms of cognitive, you will find that if you are trying to concentrate on something for a long period of time, whether it's watching TV or reading a book or just anything that requires a bit of concentration, you'll find that you'll get a headache a lot quicker, and you can't quite focus on it properly, or you can't quite take in the information as you would have before. Brain fog is quite a common term, which is where you just, again, what I pretty much just described, like you can't quite grasp anything or take it in properly. You might have to write something down because you're not going to remember it in the short term. I used to find that I'd go home from work and my partner would be like, oh, what did you do today? And I'm a hairdresser, so normally I could just go through and be like, oh, I did this person, this person, this person, this person's hair. But the worse I was getting, the more I was like, I genuinely couldn't remember what I'd done that day, which obviously was almost slightly bizarre, and from my perspective kind of worrying, because I didn't even remember what I'd done. So, you know, I was hoping that my clients were happy, but I literally could not for the life of me remember what I'd done. Some people will also find that they stutter over their words and can't almost remember the words for things as easily, and you know, their brain and their mouth aren't connecting up quite as well. Luckily for me, this isn't something that I suffer with. I'm rubbish at that kind of thing at the best of times, so I've been lucky in that respect that I haven't had that as an issue so much, but that is another quite common sort of symptom of the cognitive side of it. I think that is pretty much it for that kind of stuff. The next one would be the emotional side of it. Now, emotional side of it, I'd say depression is 100% the huge flag. I mean, I was told by countless different doctors at the beginning of all of this that the only problem with me was that I was depressed, which I did not agree with at all. I felt like what was wrong with me was making me depressed. It wasn't the fact that I was depressed that was giving me these physical symptoms. Obviously, depression can give you physical symptoms, and you know, depression alone is an awful thing to go through, but it is different with chronic fatigue because it's what's wrong with you that is making you feel this way. The way I view it is, I want to get up in my day and have the energy that I used to have, and I want to be able to go and see my friends and get on and do my job and enjoy it, and you know, not be in masses of pain and suffering through it. And then I want to be able to go out and, you know, see my friends after work, or go to the cinema, or go for a walk, or do some exercise, or go to a gig, or all of these, go for a meal, all of these countless things that I now don't get to enjoy because I need to rest and I feel rubbish. And even if I force myself to do it, I suffer through it. I don't get to enjoy it. So I think for me, the depression side of it comes from the fact that I feel like I've just woken up and my life's been taken from me. All the things that I enjoyed before, I now don't get to enjoy. So I think because your life changes so dramatically, it can make you feel really genuinely miserable, and you kind of get to a point where you're like, well, what is the point? Because everything that I lived for and everything I enjoyed, I don't have anymore. And on the days where that's worse, it can be really horrible, but there are always going to be good days, and there are always going to be days where you do feel slightly better and you are able to do a little bit more. And like anything, you do kind of learn to live with it, and you do adapt to it, and you can kind of find a way to, if you want to do something bigger, like for example go to a gig, as long as you've rested a lot the day before, you might be able to rest a lot the day after as well. So you will find a way to make it work, and even when it feels like there just isn't really any point because you don't get to enjoy anything, you really will. So it isn't worth giving up no matter what. And some people will offer you antidepressants as well, which for some people are obviously going to be a lot more beneficial, others maybe not so much, in which case is fine too. So I think there are a lot of options in terms of the emotional side, especially when you kind of feel like nobody really understands, because if you don't know anyone else with it, or you know, your family are like, yeah, but you're just tired, why can't you do this? Or your friends are like, you've just bailed on me for like the last 3 times and now I'm getting pissed off of you because I feel like you don't want to see me, or you're not making any effort. You know, it is just one of those things that people will kind of learn to understand you, and they'll get it a little bit more. It's just going to take a while because it's obviously new for them as well as it's new for you, and because it's not something physical, it's not like you've just lost a limb. They can sometimes find it a lot more difficult to actually understand what's going on with you, because you look fine, it's what's inside isn't okay anymore. So just give people a bit of a break as they're trying to give you a bit of a break too, because as much as you're the one feeling everything, they might not fully understand that, and they might not know what's going on with you entirely. And even if you explain, it doesn't mean that they then feel it. So I think maybe just try and cut people a bit of slack as well. So the next aspect that kind of, backs onto the emotional is the social side of it. Socially, I now find it really hard to go and sort of see my friends like I used to, and quite a lot of the time, if I'm being truly honest, I actually don't look forward to socialising anymore, because I just know that, I'm going to feel sick. My heart's going to be palpitating, my whole body's going to be hurting. I've got to think about getting to whoever's house I'm going to, or going to a restaurant or something like that, and then travelling back and things, and just everything socially is just not as fun. Like, I find it hard to concentrate on conversation, and I feel isolated and alone, so I don't want to be around people. And even going for a walk or something like that, like socially, or just talking on the phone even, it all takes away this tiny little bit of energy that I've got. It takes it from here to here. So the social aspect I do really struggle with. I've never been with somebody with a lot of friends anyway, but I think since having this, my friend group has gone from probably this to this, just because I don't have it in me anymore. And a lot of people really don't understand that, because they're like, yeah, but just going around somebody's house, or them coming to you and just sitting on the sofa and watching something, doesn't really take any energy. And for a normal person, I'd completely agree, but for somebody suffering with chronic fatigue, it can completely be the thing that takes you from feeling like you can just about get through the rest of your day to feeling like you can't. And then because you've done that, the next day you're literally going to be in bed, and whatever commitments you had, whether it be work or an appointment or something, you're going to then have to cancel because you pushed yourself too far. I think a lot of people really struggle with the social aspect in terms of friends and family, because a lot of people think, oh, just push yourself, like you'll be able to do it, like you'll be able to get through it and you'll have a good time. And sometimes I do end up having a good time, and I'm like, I'm actually really glad that I made myself do that, because it was worth it. But there are also a lot of times where I push myself to do something and I do regret it. It wasn't long ago that I actually cried in my bedroom because me and Sophie had to go out and do something, and the thought of being social just literally made me burst into tears, because I just didn't have it in me. And that for me before wouldn't have been very normal, but that sort of thing now is quite normal for me, to dread something to the point where I just literally want to curl up in a ball and cry and not exist, because I just don't want to do it. I don't have it in me. And I think that side of it again is quite normal for somebody with chronic fatigue, because if you just don't have it in you, you don't, but you hate being the person that bails and cancels last minute, so it can be really, really difficult. I think all of those cover the normal kind of symptoms that you will kind of suffer with chronic fatigue. There are a few symptoms that I've had that haven't been, they're not quite as common, but they are still symptoms of chronic fatigue, which I'm just going to go through now with you. So swollen glands. I have glands swelling up all over my body. They're in my neck constantly, so I've got my glands are up here all the time. I have a gland that's up in the side of my neck that's been up for, I think it's been up for 5 months now, and I've been to the doctors and got it checked out and everything, and it is just I've got no inflammation markers in my blood, which is really common, because you'll have lymph nodes come up all over your so in your armpits, in your neck, and in your groin. I've got one in my groin all the time as well. It's really common, but nothing will be in your blood work. So again, that's a really, really normal symptom of chronic fatigue, but it's not quite as common as the like exhaustion, aches and pains and things like that. But I don't think that's too out there as a symptom. So if you do have it, and you've got this all the time, that's quite common. Another thing is the sore throats. So sore throats for me tie in when I'm having a bad spell, and I do actually get that quite a lot. So having a sore throat for me will massively tie in with me having a bad spell, which is again another really common symptom of chronic fatigue. When I'm also going through a really bad spell, I sometimes get quite a lot of fevers, which I think because anyone that has chronic fatigue will 9 times out of 10 get it from having a horrible infection, and mine was glandular fever, and I think I get almost spikes in my symptoms of glandular fever whenever I'm having really bad ME. I'm not sure if that's actually how it works or if it is just another slightly rarer symptom of chronic fatigue, but I do get quite a lot of fevers when I'm having bad spells. The other one that's really kind of strange, which has been reported as a symptom but is nowhere near as common, is skin rashes. Now, as you can see, I've got a lot of tattoos, so you can't necessarily see when I'm getting a rash on my skin, but I'll get these real intense itchy patches of skin that I have, whatever I'm doing, I have to stop, and I end up either scraping my skin off because it's so intense, or I have to run it under cold water until I literally numb the area. And if I do it that way, I find that I might even have to do that 2 or 3 times. And the area in between the tattoos that I can see are really sort of like, even before I've started itching, like red and kind of raised. Again, I'm not sure if that's a symptom that other people have had. If you are suffering or you know somebody that is, it'd be interesting if you could let me know in the comments actually, because the lady that I speak to said that she hasn't really had that many people with that as a symptom, but she has had a couple with rashes as a general. So another one would be really vivid dreams. I literally never used to dream before I had chronic fatigue. Could not have told you a single dream that I'd had. But since I've had this, I've either been just waking up constantly throughout the night, or I've woken up in the morning and had like really horrible, weird, vivid dreams. So that's not been a very nice symptom because you're so tired, you just want to get a good night's sleep, but I find I'm continuously waking up throughout the night. So that one's not a particularly great one either. But I think that pretty much covers all of the main symptoms and even some of the weirder ones I've had. There are probably more symptoms out there that I don't have, so I'm not overly sure about. But it'd be good to let me know in the comment section below if you are suffering with it or you know anyone that is, if they've had any different symptoms to me or anything like that. I'm going to do another video sharing with you guys some of the like tips and tricks I have for how to deal with these kind of things. Like I've touched on a couple of things in this video, but for this I really wanted to just give you guys more of an awareness and more knowledge about the illness rather than, you know, everything in one video, because I think the video would be like bloody 2 hours long and I don't have the energy to record it, let alone like, you know, go through it with you properly. So I think, you know, I'll do a video very soon for you guys sharing with you some of the ways that I've learned to manage this and some of the things that I've put in place to help myself with some of the symptoms that I have. Again, I'm in contact with the fatigue clinic now, so I'm doing a 6-month program, so I've obviously already started that, so I can share with you guys some of the process of that as well and some of my journey so far. If you are suffering with it, then I really do wish you the best, and I really hope that you're in the percentage of people that do make a full recovery. In all honesty, most people will have it for life, but it probably will get easier over the years. If you know somebody with it, then please just give them a bit of sympathy and understanding. And if you know, don't know anyone with it and you don't have it, you've just watched this to either find out a bit more about it or just to support my channel, I really appreciate you as well, and thank you. Remember to like, comment and subscribe. You guys know the drill now. I hope you enjoyed my video. Sorry it was a bit more of a doom and gloom kind of one, but I think it's important to talk about things like this. And I hope to see you guys next time. I hope you take care, and yeah, sending you much love and positivity, and I will see you very soon.